Now, as the crisis continues to deepen in Afghanistan, an Air India flight that was carrying 129 passengers from Afghanistan has now landed at the Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi. It was a scheduled routine flight of Air India. No evacuation has taken place via this flight. Earlier, the plane hovered over Kabul for a long time, then got permission to land. Cutting across to Shreya for more on that. Shreya, Air India flight lands finally at the Indira Gandhi International Airport here in Delhi. It in fact wasn't allowed to take off. There was a lot of trouble there from Kabul when it was coming towards India. We hear 129 passengers were in it. Do take us through the details. Any evacuation that was underway, or this was a regular flight?
Well, so far as we are learning, this seems to be a regular flight that has operated from Kabul to India. It landed around 7:40, and right now, we're seeing some of the nationals who were a part of the flight. 129 passengers, as we know, they're coming out. Some of them are still at the conveyor belt, is what we are learning. Now, we also try to speak with some of the family members who are waiting for their friends and their family. Some of them are very distressed because they were unable to get through them before they took the flight, and the flight was also delayed, as you rightly mentioned. It landed approximately at 7:40 p.m. and we're expecting more and more passengers to come out any time.
Right, Shreya, thank you very much for joining us with those details. Now, I'm going to cut across to these images here. Right on your screens now are images reflecting the current situation in Afghanistan. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has left the country. He's now gone to Tajikistan with his supporters. With Ghani's exit, Afghanistan is now formally without an official government itself. Second, chaos on the streets of Kabul that you see here, visuals as Taliban takes over. It looks imminent that the Taliban will now fully capture Kabul, as they've already infiltrated from all four sides into the capital city. Traffic snarls and jams visible on streets. And third image that you see here is Taliban fighters that can be seen entering Kabul, marking a return to the Taliban era. All right, furthermore, on your screens right now, we're going to show you visuals of an eerie rerun of American capitulation. In 1975, Vietnamese forces there managed, in fact, Vietnamese forces ousted US troops. In 2021, though, US choppers started evacuating American staff after Taliban stormed Kabul. Here you see almost like a deja vu moment. We're looking at a picture from 1975, Saigon, Vietnam, where forces were ousted. US forces were ousted. In 2021, US choppers have started evacuating its diplomats decades later, right from Kabul. Here you have it. We're showing you visuals from what happened back then to now, at least 46 years on. We see the kind of struggle that Afghanis have had to endure over the last decades, and it doesn't seem like the world has been able to help. And the US there for years has tried to step in, but this time in August 2021, the US finally removed all their troops. In fact, evacuated all their troops, even the last bulk of them, in April 2021. Now, on your screens here, right here, we're going to show you some images of uncertainty from the streets of Kabul. As Taliban are all set to wrest control of Kabul, panic and desperation are visible in the country's capital. Traffic jams and snarls are witnessed as citizens rush to escape the barbarism of Taliban. Here you have it, visuals coming in from Kabul, where desperate Afghanis who are in sheer panic are wanting to flee from Kabul at the earliest. Many of them already wanting to rush out. In the midst of that, we're looking at huge traffic snarls, jams there, where people who are wanting to head out, flee from Kabul, are now stuck because on all four sides you have Taliban approaching quite quickly to capture the national capital. It's already fallen to the hands of the Taliban. It's about time that they formally declare control over the capital city. Now, In fact, Kabul has been witnessing trouble and turmoil for over 40 years. These two images that we're going to show you, eerie rerun of US capitulation in 1975. Vietnamese forces had ousted US troops, and then now, 4 decades later, US Marines are evacuating nationals from Kabul. Here's a detailed report.
Why is this photograph of the infamous US evacuation from Saigon, Vietnam in 1975 going viral today? Well, that's because it's eerily similar to an image today from Kabul. In both photographs, taken 46 years apart, US Army Chinook helicopters are visible hovering over US Embassy buildings to extract staff in both these cities under siege. In 1975, it was the Viet Cong. In 2021, it's the Taliban. If history has a devastating way of repeating itself, here's the visual proof. In the words of some observers, the US pullout from Afghanistan is now playing out as an even more horrifying sequel to the humiliating, bruising defeat of American forces in Saigon nearly half a century ago. For the United States, the surge of the Taliban back to power in Afghanistan is the 21st century's most resounding military reversal. Consider these images a few days ago from the Bagram Air Base, the heart of US special operations in Afghanistan, from where missions to kill Osama bin Laden in Pakistan and several terrorist leaders were launched.
Each and every mountain of this airbase surrounding it was being monitored by the US designers, and that is why they were using this base for the air operations, which was the main task of the American forces.
The base is now abandoned, deserted, and taken over by the Taliban. Remember, it was only weeks after the 9/11 attacks in New York City and Washington that the US famously invaded Afghanistan as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. Since then, it has poured untold billions into building an Afghan national military force, one that could hold its own and shape the future of the country. But all those American billions, all those plans, and 2 decades of US presence in the war-torn country simply disintegrated in front of the world in a matter of days. With the Taliban sweeping through one city after another, making short work of the grand defenses the US had claimed to have built. Not only has the Taliban's rise made the US look defeated and bruised, but has confirmed what the Taliban has always said about Washington. One day you will get tired and leave, and when that day comes, we will be ready to take over. And that is precisely what is happening. As the US now scurries to evacuate its Kabul embassy and pull out its citizens while the Taliban holds position at the gates of Kabul, history will be smiling ruefully at this unending cycle. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let me quickly cut across to Geeta Mohan joining us live for more on that. Geeta, while the world watches Taliban closing in on the country with Kabul, the heart of the country now in the hands of Taliban, it appears more or less the entire country is in Taliban's control. What's going to be the next formal process of declaring power there in Afghanistan?
Well, for now, what's going to happen is that there is going to be an interim government, a caretaker government, before the absolute transition really takes place. Because the details of what has really been decided upon is yet to come out. We do know that there is going to be a government, but the demand of the Taliban was that the Afghan administration as of today, which is Ghani's administration, has to be ousted completely. Once they're out, then there will be a new mix of people. The Taliban also was not very welcoming to the idea of elections. So we'll have to see what the process of the selecting the representatives is really going to be like. So till the time that happens, there will be one interim caretaker government, and then the transition will take place. Because Ashraf Ghani has already left, and Abdullah in an announcement, in a video message, has announced, calling him, referring to Ashraf Ghani as former president, since he has already tendered his resignation, and the resignation letter was sent to the Taliban office in Qatar as well. informing them that Ashraf Ghani has formally resigned and has left the country. The Taliban has said that they will only start setting foot into Kabul once the transition begins. So
Right.
for the Taliban, the transition is beginning with the caretaker government and the understanding of where and how the administration will come into being. These are nitty-gritties and details that we do not really have right now, but we do know that there will be a caretaker government in place, and that the Taliban is absolutely certain there can be no compromise, that it will be the Sharia law that will be followed under the Taliban administration in
Right.
Afghanistan.
Geeta, thank you very much for joining us with those details.